Hey there everyone, I'm Jeff, your tabletop technician here on the Dice Tower, wrapping up the Top 100 series during Jeff Week while the folks are over at the Dice Tower East Convention. First of all, I want to thank all of you, again, the audience, for contributing to the Dice Tower Kickstarter campaign, which gave me the opportunity to make this series. And of course, a big thank you to Tom Vassell and the crew there at the Dice Tower for letting me do this. A big thanks especially to Chris Yee, who has had to proofread all these videos before they've gone out to you, just to make sure there weren't any editing errors, mishaps, etc. I've had a lot of fun working with Chris, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do so. Let's go ahead and kick off the top 10. As I was packing up my games to bring here today, I realized that I didn't have to bring my number 10 because it's one that we keep here for our guests to be able to play. This is Meadow by Rebel Studio. Now, I did a big review of this in the downstream expansion right here on the channel sometime, I believe, last year, and I would encourage you to check that one out if you never saw it, because I had a lot of fun and a lot of silly antics with my mother and my daughter to put together that video. And everything that I said there still holds true today. This is a beautifully illustrated game about building a tableau, sort of showing off different trips that you've taken and things that you have seen across a variety of meadows. And you're playing out cards representing plants, trees, bugs, bunnies, animals, you name it, almost establishing something of an ecosystem, of course, to gather points at the end of the game, but also to be able to complete some objectives. You can sit around a campfire and sort of tell stories of the things that you have seen on your travels to gain some extra points, but there's also a limited number of seats available, and only so many players will have so many opportunities to boast about their travels. And it's that adds just a little bit of tension, just a little bit of intrigue into this game, and makes it solidly my number 10 on this list, Meadow. My number 9 is a game that I got to play at one of the recent Dice Tower retreats, and I got to play it with none other than Z Garcia, and it was an opportunity I was kind of seeking out because I knew this game was fairly high on his list as well. This is Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. This is kind of one of those, evolutionary card games, living card games, whatever they call these, where each player gets a deck of cards related to a faction, and then they are using that deck of cards in a multitude of ways to collect resources, using those resources to play additional cards, using those to trigger various actions, all of which, of course, to gather points. There is also an island board where you can explore distant locations to either visit them and gather some resources, or even plunder them, sort of taking those lands over, and they become cards in your tableau that may provide additional actions, additional resources, etc. This game really clicked with me, so much so that I pretty much bought everything there was for it before I even sat down to the next game. This is definitely that kind of engine building, tableau building game that I get really excited for. I really love trying to figure out what your faction is supposed to do, what it's built to do, and then of course just exploiting that to try and grab the most points. Something I've definitely had a ton of fun getting to revisit and getting to check out all the different factions in this box. My number 9, Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. Number 8 was another fairly early game in my collection. It was one of the first games that taught me this word, Kickstarter. I didn't back this game. I found out about it after the fact, so I bought a copy secondhand, paying a lot of money for it, but then backed the expansion when it came through as well. This is Dinogenics by Ninth Haven Games. This is, I think, the epitome of Jurassic Park in a box, even though it, of course, makes no allusions to that IP. I love the way this game looks on the table. I love the rich colors, the deep blues, the kind of tech look that this game has, although the number font is terrible, admittedly. But I love building up the dinosaur parks. You have these, screen printed fences that you're installing. You're getting these dinosaurs into their paddocks. You're trying to kind of make everything work. You're trying to attract new visitors, building new hotels and other things that they can visit. Again, all of course to build up a strong reputation in your park and get a lot of points. Now, there is a strong luck factor to this game, especially with the base game, that you're trying to collect these DNA cards and getting enough cards that then you can turn in to get the various dinosaurs. They fixed some of that with the controlled chaos expansion, which lets you obtain wild DNA or even just additional DNA tokens, which you can again use as a wild to make just about any dinosaur that you want. And it does take up a massive footprint. In fact, we played it on this very big table right here in front of me, and it took up most of the table with the controlled chaos expansion, but still just a delightful puzzle to play. I really, really love playing this game. My number 8, Dinogenics. Calling back to my number 12, which was Underwater Cities, a very, very fun engine building, worker placement style game where you're just trying, again, to get a lot done in a fairly short period of time. And that game put both this designer and this publisher on my keep an eye on list, which is why I picked up Evacuation as my number 7. This is a fairly new game from Vladimir Suchy, where you are trying to basically evacuate a planet. It doesn't tell you which planet it is, but we all know. And you're trying to move to a new planet because, of course, we've kind of destroyed the planet that we're coming from. And so it has this really interesting idea of having an engine in place, generating tons of resources on your base planet, but as the game goes, you're destroying that engine over here, starting a new one over here, and you have to balance those resources. You have to kind of keep track of what you have where and be mindful of what you still need to accomplish on either of those worlds to, of course, be the most successful in getting everything moved over to the new world. This is a puzzle that I have yet to figure out. I have played this a lot of times, but I still just struggle to hit the higher point spreads in this game. But a delightful puzzle nonetheless, a game that I am looking forward to continuing to get better at. I hope I can get better at. My number 7, Evacuation. With number 6, I hit a recurring theme. This is a game that I played at one of the Dice Tower retreats, fell in love with, and ordered it almost immediately after we were done playing. This is 10 Penny Parks. This is a game about building an amusement park out in the forest, and you're trying to sort of squeeze these various amusements, these rides, whatever they may be, amongst the trees of the land tiles that you control. Now, of course, you can clear out some trees to give yourself some room, or you can just do your best to squeeze everything in there, saving those precious actions that you have to work with to build your park up as best as you can. And you're also putting in various concession stands. You're trying to expand that land. You're trying to get money. You're trying to advertise the rides that you have. A lot that you're trying to get done in what seems like a very tight, narrow game space. What makes this game so unique, I think, by the way, is that while it sort of has something of a polyomino tile placement, you're not actually allowed to touch any of the tiles to each other. They can only share a corner. They can never touch sides with one another. And so it makes it a very, very unique spatial puzzle on these very tight boards. And it's one reason why I've had a ton of fun with this game. Also doing a board game breakfast segment of this quite some time ago. Fantastic game. My number 6, 10 Penny Parks. My number 5 took a long time to get to where it is. I played this many, many times before I was ever able to own a copy, backing it years before it finally showed up in all of its complete, all-in, very expensive glory. This is Vindication by Orange Nebula Games. This one's a tough one to explain in a short period of time, but the idea is that you're wretched scum, and you've been kicked off of the ship that you were the captain of after a mutiny. You washed up on shore on this very weird island, and you're exploring that island, seeing all that it has to offer you, and trying to restore yourself to a former glory, trying to vindicate yourself in your travels. And this game, it feels to me like a light RPG because you're building up a crew, you're building up attributes of your own character, you're trying to unlock your full potential. You can eventually sort of commandeer some of these places on the map, and all of which, of course, to grab a ton of endgame points. It's a very interesting puzzle, very, very easy to teach, but very difficult to master. And all of the different avenues that you can explore in this game is what keeps it very interesting. Now, I do have all the expansions of this, and I've played through a number of them, and I will honestly tell you that I think you should stick with the base game. A lot of those expansions, while they add some interesting ideas to the game, I don't feel like they add a clear path to victory that is in the base game. They don't really give you enough things to explore from what the base game already has there for you. But it's a good thing that there is a ton of stuff in that base game, and I still enjoy playing it just with the core cards. Vindication, my number 5. My number 4 is a weird one for me. This is the only party game on this list. And I'm going to tell you, I really struggled with where to put this on the list because I don't play a lot of party games. There are no other party games that come anywhere close to this one as far as just being a fantastic experience for me. This was a game that I just avoided playing. My sister finally forced us to play this at a family reunion, and I had never laughed so hard. This is Anomia. The idea of having to spit out an answer, having to quickly come up with a word or a phrase, and just completely locking up your brain. That is what this game explores. Each player will have clues in front of them with a symbol, and when their symbols match another player's, they have to rattle off a word or a phrase, a name, whatever it may be, correlating to the clue in front of that player. So you may have a card in front of you that says fruit, and when you match a symbol with another player, they may shout out banana. Or they may sit there and go, as their brain clogs up with every possible word they can think of, and just nothing quite gets out in time. And you simply look at their card, which says color, and you go, red. Why is this so hard? And it is those moments that just makes everyone crack up at this table. One of my other favorite sort of strategies or tactics, if you will, is just shouting out a completely random word, maybe a somewhat inappropriate word, and getting everyone to just, what are you talking about? And giving yourself the time to go, banana. That's what I meant to say. It makes this game absolutely hilarious. It gets people just laughing, swearing at each other, just everything that elevates this to sheer amazement. No one has ever not had a great time with this game. I have just laughed hysterically every single time I've played it. I considered making this my number 1 because there is no other game that I have just enjoyed playing as much as this one. Obviously not when I get to play as often because it requires a good 4 or 5 players to really start to shine, but I will never pass up the opportunity to play my number 4, Anomia. I haven't done as good a job keeping track of some of the stats in this series. This is the 16th space game in this series. This is Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy. I was introduced to this at a local gaming event a good year or more ago with some acquaintances in the area, and one of those games that halfway through they said, oh, it's your turn. Oh, gee, sorry, I was purchasing this game. This does everything that I love in an open world, sort of a 4X style space game. You are trying to explore new sectors of space. You're trying to expand your civilization. You're building new ships. In this game, you can even customize and upgrade your ships, changing out the weapons, changing out the shield, the armor, the ship speed, all kinds of stuff, and trying to manage what the different ships can do, and all of which, of course, to accumulate points. But it has this very interesting system in that you can take any action you want on your turn. You can do anything you want, and I love games that provide that flexibility to players. However, the more actions that you do, the more you have to pay at the end of the game. And if you ever can't make up the, make the bills at the end of your round, then you have to start liquidating your assets, maybe even selling off systems of space until your bill comes down to something that you can't afford. And so it makes it, again, a very tense situation as you're trying to sort of just determine, what do I really need to do? What can I afford to do? What do I absolutely have to get done in this round? And how do I set myself up for success in the next round? Just a fantastic experience. Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy, my number 3. That being said, my number 2 is the 17th and final space game of this series. This is a game that I have never played competitively. I've only ever played it solo, and even then I didn't really start exploring it solo until I was able to build a macro-enabled Excel spreadsheet to really make the game work efficiently for me personally. I had a ton of fun doing that, and I have a ton of fun playing Leaving Earth, my number 2. This is a game set in the 1950s space race where the various countries of the planet Earth were trying to compete to be the first ones into space. And in this game, you are trying to research new technologies, improve those technologies, work out the bugs, if you will, and try and launch rudimentary missions to various celestial bodies in our solar system. Now, I'll tell you right away, this is not the actual box to Leaving Earth. This is a box that I had custom made using some files that are available out on BGG. The original game came in this very small clamshell kind of a box. I actually had to cut the label to get the lid open, and it's made by this arts and crafts shop out in California. The designer is the son of the couple that owns that studio, and I don't even know if they're still making it. It was always sort of printed to order. I do know that the designer and his family had a little bit of a fallout, and so I don't even know if this game is still available, but it is a fantastic puzzle, a very immersive experience, and one that starts off sort of simple. You're just researching new tech and spending some money to try and get that tech improved. You're getting grants from your countries to, as everyone is invested in this space race, but it generally gets very difficult and can get quite push your luck focused as you're trying to launch these missions, trying to get things done before your opponents can, or in the solo mode, trying to get things done before the game ends, because any missions that you don't accomplish, your AI opponent just automatically scores. And so it is a very approachable even as a solo game, because you're just trying to do your own thing. You're trying to be successful. You're trying to rack up as many points as you can, as quickly as you can, but with a fantastic theme, a unique presentation with these kind of laser cut wood pieces, fantastic art, beautiful, illustrations of the various rockets and components, again, set back in the 1950s. Just one of my favorite games to explore when opportunities allow. Number 2, Leaving Earth. And here we are at number 1, the last game of this series, and one that I am really excited to share with you. As I mentioned at the beginning of this whole series, this was a bit of a challenge. I've had a ton of fun with it, but it was quite a challenge to try and work through and really come out with my top 100 games. And I'm curious, as folks who have watched this entire series, I'm curious what maybe I've left out that you might want to steer me towards. Again, I have not played hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. A few hundred by now for sure, but there's still always new things that I find out about even years after they have come out. And I have enjoyed through this series and other videos that I've done just getting to continue to learn what else is out there and seeking out even old games that would be, of course, new to me. So anyways, here we go with my number 1. And this is a bit of a controversial game, I think, to get into, because there are a handful of folks out there, not a huge handful, but certainly not an insignificant handful of folks who have never gotten their copy of this game from the original Kickstarter. The designer of this game sort of up and vanished and left a lot of folks high and dry. And it is unfortunate, because I think this is an absolutely fantastic game. This is The Age of Atlantis by the now defunct Eldorado Games. This is a worker placement game of sorts, but the entire board is covered with spaces that you can go to. It's basically a circular map representing the city of Atlantis, and you can place your workers on any of the available spaces to build buildings, gather resources, even deploy these giant steampunk-themed myths, going out and fighting armies as they march towards the city of Atlantis. So it's kind of got this tower defense, open world, worker placement, engine building, tech tree aspect. It's one of those games where there are just a ton of things that you're trying to do and you feel like there is never enough time to get them done. Again, another efficiency puzzle where you're trying to maximize every one of your actions. I can go here and I can build this, but if I wait and go and gather a couple more resources, then I can go here and I can build this and research this and do this. But someone else may go and use that building, blocking you out from it for that round, and you have to, completely reorganize your plan. And that is why I just continue to enjoy the puzzle of this game. I played this a dozen times, if not more, and every time I try out new tactics, I try out new technologies from the different buildings, and I just try out new methods to try and hoover up some points. A fantastic game, one that I really, really wish had the opportunity to grow to its level of greatness. A lot of folks now are checking out this game secondhand, buying copies off the secondary market, not knowing the past troubles with this game, and they're really, really enjoying it. And so even though it got a lot of really, really low scores, fairly to some extent, I'd say, out on Board Game Geek, it is still rising as people are starting to see just how good of a game it really is, despite the challenges with the designer and the publisher. My number one, The Age of Atlantis. Thank you so much for checking out this series. Thank you for all the comments and all the feedback, and thank you for supporting me over the past number of years as I produce content here on the Dice Tower. I love being a part of this channel. I love making these videos, and I look forward to many more years ahead. Cheers to all of you, and I'll see you soon.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.